Welcome to my next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch more amazing stories. James was a clothing store employee at a small shop in town. Every day, he faced different customers with different needs. James's life went on normally until one day. A black man walked into the store. James, who had grown up with racial prejudice and discrimination, immediately felt uncomfortable seeing this man. He glanced at the man's clothing, simple, nothing special, and quickly concluded that he couldn't afford anything in the store. With a cold look, James approached him and asked, "What do you need here?" His tone was unfriendly, even somewhat sarcastic. The man, named Mark, gently replied, "I'm looking for a suitable suit." James smirked, showing distrust, and quickly said, "We don't have anything that suits you here. This store only serves customers with means." His eyes showed clear disdain, and he pointed towards the door, implying that he wanted Mark to leave. Mark said nothing more, only smiled lightly and nodded. He quietly left the store, leaving James with a small sense of victory, as if he had just protected the store from someone unworthy. But James had no idea that the man he had just kicked out was Mark Johnson, the new mayor of the town, who had just been appointed and was exploring his new home. The next morning, the small town where James lived was buzzing with news about the new mayor's arrival. James scrolled through his phone during his break, and Mark Johnson's picture appeared on the screen. His heart skipped a beat when he realized it was the same man he had kicked out of the store the day before. James felt shocked and confused. He couldn't believe that the man he had looked down on, the one he had judged solely by appearance, was the new mayor, a person with great power and influence over the town. James began to worry about the consequences that might follow. He knew he had been wrong, but his ego was too big for him to admit it. The next day, when James arrived at the store, he noticed that something was different. His colleagues looked at him strangely, and he felt an invisible tension hanging in the air. The store manager called him into the office, and James felt anxious. "James, do you know who the man you kicked out yesterday was?" the manager asked, his tone serious. James bowed his head, mumbling, I know now. He was the new mayor." The manager sighed. "We've received complaints from some customers about your attitude. Unfortunately, it seems that Mr. Mark Johnson wasn't pleased with how you treated him either. You need to change, James. Otherwise, I'm afraid there won't be a place for you here." James felt a deep sense of shame. For the first time in his life, he realized that his actions affected not only himself but also those around him. He began to think about why he held such prejudices and whether there was any way he could change. A week later, Mark returned to the store. This time, he was accompanied by a few assistants and appeared to be conducting a tour of local businesses. James saw him from afar, and his heart raced. He knew this was his chance to make amends, or at least to show his remorse. James approached Mark, trying to stay calm. "Mr. Johnson, I want to apologize for my behavior last time. I was wrong to judge you based on appearances and act inappropriately. I'm truly sorry." Mark looked at James, his eyes no longer showing displeasure or anger. Instead, they held understanding. He smiled gently and said, "Everyone makes mistakes, James. What's important is what we learn from those mistakes." Mark's words felt like a ray of light shining into James's soul. It was the first moment he realized that change wasn't something too far off, and forgiveness could be the first step toward becoming a better person. After that encounter, James began his journey of self-improvement. He read books about cultural diversity, attended workshops on fairness and equality. He started looking at the people around him differently, no longer judging them hastily or holding prejudices. Mark didn't abandon James either. He invited James to join community activities organized by the mayor's office, where James had the opportunity to meet people from all walks of life. These encounters helped James broaden his perspective, understand the difficulties many people faced simply because of differences in skin color, background, or social status. Gradually, James became a new person, more open, more understanding, and more caring about others. He began participating in charity activities, helping the homeless, and even volunteering to teach poor children in town. On his path to change, James faced many challenges. There were times when he had to deal with opposition from his old friends, who couldn't understand why he had changed. They thought James was being fake and trying to win the mayor's favor to keep his job. These words hurt James, but he knew he was on the right path. James decided not to let negative comments discourage him. He continued participating in community activities and gradually found joy in helping others. Once, he joined a donation drive for families in need after a major flood. In those moments, James realized that the value of a person wasn't in their skin color or status, but in how they treated others. Mark also played an important role in encouraging James. He was always there to listen and offer advice when James faced difficulties. Mark became a true friend, who helped James transform from a prejudiced individual into someone who knew how to love and share. One day, after finishing a community meeting, Mark invited James to his home for dinner. James felt quite surprised but happily accepted. During that dinner, Mark shared with James his life story, the struggles he had faced as a black man in society, and how he had overcome them to become the mayor of the town. James listened to Mark's story with deep empathy. He realized that Mark was not only a talented leader but also a compassionate person, willing to forgive and help others. James felt grateful for the opportunity to meet and learn from Mark. From then on, the relationship between James and Mark went beyond just helping each other at work or in the community. It became a true friendship. They often met up, shared about life, work, and discussed ways to improve the town. After months of participating in community activities, James began to think about doing something more sustainable for the town. He came up with the idea of opening a support center for those in need, where they could receive help with food, clothing, and even skill training to improve their lives. James shared this idea with Mark, and Mark fully supported him. With Mark's help and the community's support, James began building the support center. Initially, raising funds and finding volunteers was difficult, but James didn't give up. He used all the relationships and reputation he had built to call for support. Gradually, the support center was completed. On the opening day, many people attended, including those whom James had once held prejudices against. They saw a completely different James, someone who cared, who loved, and was willing to help others. James felt proud of what he had accomplished, but above all, he knew he had found the true meaning of life. James's change didn't stop at himself. It spread to those around him. His colleagues at the store also began to reconsider how they treated customers and each other. They saw James's positive transformation and started learning from him. The atmosphere in the store became much more pleasant and friendly. The support center that James established also became a beacon of hope for the town. Many people came to receive help, and many others came to volunteer and contribute to the community. James became an informal leader of the center, someone who inspired others with practical actions and compassion. A year later, James was no longer the clothing store employee with a prejudiced look. He had become an important part of the community, someone always willing to help and share with others. Mark remained a friend, a mentor, always by his side, helping him on his journey of change. James understood that life was a long journey, and everyone could make mistakes, but the important thing was to learn from those mistakes, to get back up and become better. Meeting Mark had changed his life, giving him a new perspective on life and people. The story of James and Mark is a testament to the power of forgiveness and compassion. It shows that no matter how many mistakes we make, there's always a chance to correct them and become better if we open our hearts and change. James didn't stop at running the support center. He wanted to do more for his community. He began organizing talks to share his story about change and the importance of overcoming personal prejudice. These talks drew a lot of attention in the town, especially from young people seeking purpose and direction in their lives. In one talk, James spoke about the moment he saw Mark's picture in the news, about the shame and fear that made him reconsider his actions. He spoke about how people could change and that change began with admitting mistakes and having the courage to face them. James's words touched many people and encouraged them to change. James also started collaborating with local schools to organize workshops on diversity and equality. He wanted the next generation not to be influenced by the prejudices he once held. The students heard his story, participated in discussions, and practiced respect and understanding. James saw the change in the students' eyes, from curiosity to understanding and respect. In this journey, James wasn't alone. Besides Mark, many others became his companions. They were people who had once received help from the support center. Those whose lives had been difficult but had improved thanks to James and the community's assistance. These people returned to the center, not to receive help, but to volunteer and help others as they had been helped. One special companion was Maria, a single mother who had lost everything after a flood. Thanks to the support center, Maria found temporary housing, food, and clothes for her children. Now that her life had stabilized, Maria returned to the center every week to help cook and teach life skills classes to those in need. Maria and James became close friends, and Maria always saw James as a brother, someone who had changed her life. James's efforts were not only recognized by the community but also by local authorities. One fall morning, James received an invitation to an awards ceremony organized by Mayor Mark Johnson. The event aimed to honor individuals who had made positive contributions to the development and prosperity of the town. At the ceremony, Mark stood up to speak about James's journey of transformation. He recounted the first time he met James at the clothing store, the initial disappointment, and then the surprise at witnessing James's profound change. Mark emphasized that James was living proof that people could change, and that such change could benefit the entire community. James stepped onto the stage amid continuous applause. He felt emotional seeing familiar faces, those he had helped, friends, and even those who had once doubted him. James knew he had come a long way, and his efforts had been rewarded with recognition and love from everyone. The changes in James's life brought him not only a career and friendships but also love. During a workshop at a local school, James met Emily, a literature teacher who shared the same ideals. Emily was impressed by James's story and his sincerity in what he did. They started talking, from conversations about work and community to romantic dates. Emily became a great source of motivation for James. She supported his plans, joined him in community activities, and sometimes helped him organize workshops. The love between James and Emily grew stronger, and they decided to marry in a simple but meaningful ceremony, attended by family, friends, and those they had helped over the years. James knew his journey wasn't over yet. He and Emily planned to expand the support center, providing more services for the community, including vocational training courses to help those in need become self-sufficient and build new lives. James also wanted to create more playgrounds for children, giving them a safe and healthy place to grow. Mark remained a friend, a mentor, and a companion in all of James's future endeavors. Together, they worked to make the town a better place to live, where everyone was respected, loved, and given opportunities to thrive. James understood that life was a long journey, and everyone could make mistakes. But the important thing was to learn from those mistakes, to get back up, and become better. Meeting Mark had changed his life, giving him a new perspective on life and people. The story of James and Mark is a testament to the power of forgiveness and compassion. It shows that no matter how many mistakes we make, there's always a chance to correct them and become better if we open our hearts and change. Above all, proves that when we unite and help each other, we can create positive and lasting changes for our community.